When Joe Biden wants an update on the virus, he calls on the nation's top health experts. Working together for all Americans is what Joe does. When writing his healthcare plan, Joe Biden worked with both doctors and patients to make healthcare affordable by lowering premiums, reducing drug costs, and protecting people with pre-existing conditions. Joe listened to both small business owners and workers to create his economic plan that cuts taxes for middle-class families, creates 18 million new jobs in his first term, and raises wages by as much as $15,000 a year. Joe Biden's plans will help working families immediately by making the super rich finally pay their fair share. For Joe, it's never been about ego. It's always been about the work he can do for working families. It's what he's always done. Joe Biden brings everyone to the table and gets it done.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Politicrat. Welcome to the Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore. It is Saturday, October the 17th, 2020. On this edition of the Politicrat, highlights from the Biden town hall this past Thursday, with some clips and also a word about what's going on with Ice Cube and with Kanye West, as we are now 17 days away from the end of voting season for this election. That and more coming up next. Welcome back. So here we are, and 17 voting days are left. My goodness me, this time has whittled down, hasn't it? I mean, I remember back in, I think, July, we were talking about 100 days remaining in this election. Literally 100 days. I mean, the voting had not begun in July, but we were talking about how there are 100 days until the election. And here we are now, with just 17 days left, 2.5 weeks. And voting began, this election began on September 4th. So we are in the midst of 2 full months of voting. And we are at a point now where record-breaking numbers of people are turning out to vote. This is just staggering. And as you know, if you listened to yesterday's podcast episode, I spoke to the Harris County, Texas clerk, Mr. Chris Hollins, who talked about the kinds of things he is doing in Harris County, Texas, the largest county in Texas, 4.5+ million people population, and the third largest county by population in the entire country after New York County and Los Angeles County. And he talked about all of these measures, things that people should have been doing years ago. 24-hour voting, drive-through voting. I mean, giving people the option to vote at 2 a.m. if they're coming off a shift. These are things that should have been done years ago and all over the country. But as he pointed out in our conversation yesterday, there are people, obviously, you know this, you know it very well, who do not want you and I to vote, who do not want most of America to vote, who, only want white, rich men to vote, just like it used to be back in the 17 and 1800s, where you had rich, white men voting, property owners, property holders, white men who enslaved black people and owned people as property. Those are the people, the only people who could vote. So that's where the Republican Party and the governor of Texas and the other Republican governors around the country, pretty much all of them. There's a few exceptions. Charlie Baker, from the best of my knowledge, who is the Republican governor of Massachusetts. I know people are going to say, oh, yeah, well, that's a Democratic-run state. Okay, fine. It's a Democratic state with a Democratic state legislature as far as I know. But I know that Charlie Baker, for the best of my knowledge, I've not heard Charlie Baker do these kinds of things in that state. Not in Massachusetts, he's not. In fact, he's the opposite. He wants more people to vote. But the point I'm making here is that we have the overall point I'm making here is that we have 17 voting days remaining. Have you voted? Have you voted yet? I hope that you have. I hope that you've told your friends and family by text, by email, by Twitter, FaceTime, YouTube, Zoom, WebEx, whatever you use to communicate to people, to communicate to family, friends. You call them, call your family, call your friends, relatives, cousins, their relatives, and let them know that this is go time. This is it now. And that they must be registered to vote, and that they must be aware of the voting rules in their state. I am very, very happy, by the way, to learn that Cedric Humphreys, who I spoke about in yesterday's episode, and quite frankly, was curious as to the genesis of his question, apart from "you ain't black, what do you have to..." I guess I probably should not have been as rough, because I saw that as a sign of disrespect. And I had a conversation about this offline. Look, there's things about Joe Biden I don't like. I've told people this here on this podcast. I think you're very well aware if you've been a regular listener, especially going back to February, March, and April of this year, and even beyond then, I've raised critical questions about Joe Biden. But I've also said that I would support whomever the Democratic nominee was, short of it being Mike Bloomberg. But still, I would still vote for Mike Bloomberg. I wouldn't be going on and on enthusiastically about him, but I would tell people to vote for him if he were. But thank God Mike Bloomberg is not in the equation here. Although he is in the equation in terms of, and I do give him some credit for this, spending $100 million or $200 million or whatever it was of his own money to pay for the fees of felons in Florida who had to first pay their fees, these fees that they had to pay in order to go ahead and vote before they could vote. So any outstanding fees or things that they had to pay had to be paid. That was a Florida law. That was a rule in Florida. And Mike Bloomberg spent 100 or 200 million or whatever it was of his own money to pay those fees off for thousands upon thousands of ex-felons so that they could then go and vote. So I give him credit for that. And I thank him for that too. That's a very good thing. But now we're with Joe Biden, and Joe Biden has a really comprehensive plan for Black America. And I am pleased that Cedric Humphreys, a black man, a young black man, who got up and asked the question. And I played you the whole 7.5 minute exchange from the question to the very end of the answer in that town hall on Thursday. I'm really pleased, after that question. Again, I thought that question, I don't know. But look, I should say, the young man is frustrated. There are a lot of younger black voters, or a cross-section of younger black voters, and perhaps a few older ones, but I wouldn't say they would be much beyond the age of 55, if that, who are frustrated, who have been. And so I guess part of the way that question was phrased, I can't even speak today. However curious the phrasing of that question may have sounded, at least to me, there is a lot of frustration. I think that, quite frankly, and he's not here to speak for himself, he's actually meeting with Joe Biden today. I think some of that was frustration on his part as a young man. And he spoke about this on Don Lemon the other day, in fact, just yesterday or the day before, I think it was yesterday, about this, about how frustrated he's been. But he made it clear, to his credit, that he is voting for Joe Biden. He's not an undecided voter. He realizes that, it's a choice between Joe Biden and this fascist demagogue in the White House. And he said as much in that interview with Don Lemon. And he mentioned that he is meeting with Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to be talking to him today, which is great because, as you know, on that little piece of audio I played, the 7 minutes of it, Joe Biden said, look, if you want to hear more, I'm here. Come on, I'll tell you more. That is somebody who's at least, again, Joe Biden is going to talk to you and he's going to listen to you as well. And he can be pushed. He can be pushed. We've seen it. If he couldn't be pushed, then how come for months black women in the main, some prominent black women had, and people like myself on Twitter, but there were prominent black women who had been pressuring Joe Biden for months to pick a black woman for the vice presidential spot. And let me tell you, if Joe Biden couldn't be pushed, he wouldn't have picked Kamala Harris. I'm telling you right now, he wouldn't have picked her. And that wasn't just because, look, he knows that Kamala Harris as a senator is very qualified to step into that role and step into the presidency. Let's be honest. But we still have to push him, and we did. And particularly black women. Black women in leadership positions, in their movements, in their organizations, took to the Washington Post and other places and made it known. Look, this is what has to be done. So I'm pleased that Cedric Humphreys is going to be voting for Joe Biden. And I hope that he spreads that message to others. And I think he will. And I will as well. I also wanted to say on this episode that if you are someone who has voted, or even if you haven't voted, but if you have voted already, make sure that you urge and reach out to people who have not yet voted. Make sure you reach out to everybody. In fact, a great way to do that would be to Phonebank right now. Or if you don't want to talk to callers, text them. In a text banking session, there are any number of organizations in this country who are doing those things right now. Whether it is Joe Biden for president, you can get in touch with his campaign at joebiden.com, or you can text the word READY, READY, to 30330. Get involved in getting people out to vote. You can do phone banking for the Biden campaign. I myself have done that. You can, if you want to join another organization, you can do this for more than one place and more than one campaign. You can do this for more than one organization. There's Color of Change. I've phone banked for them as well. There's no reason why you can't spend time with Color of Change and reach out to black voters. Get on the horn, get involved. You can go and find Color of Change on the internet, on Twitter, on YouTube, on so many platforms. Just search for them, Color of Change. They have a political action committee, a PAC, who will be of great help to you, and you can in turn be of great help to voters who still have not cast their vote yet, or may still be on the fence, or may not know how to vote. Believe me, there's still people out there that need to be persuaded or need to be educated about voting. And you never know what you'll get when you speak to someone, but at all times you can make sure that you engage with them in a way that helps them out. No matter what, make sure that you do this, because every phone call counts. Every text counts. Every single phone call truly counts, because that leads to votes. Potentially, you could be speaking to 10, 15, 20 people in a full hour. Just 1 hour will do. You could speak to 10, 20 people in an hour, and that makes a huge difference. So please, get involved, whether it's gun control, whether it's something else you feel very passionate about. Get involved with an organization and Phonebank to get all of the people that you want to see in Congress, you want to see in the White House, the Joe Biden administration. Make sure you work now on the phones, on text, to get these campaigns over the line. Vote early, vote Biden, and make sure you go and get support for people in the Senate who are running, Democrats running for Senate seats, Democrats looking to hold on to seats like Doug Jones in Alabama. Support Doug Jones's campaign. Doug Jones has been a loyal senator to the state of Alabama, and he's also not forgotten ever who brought him to the dance. Black women voters have been the ones who have steered the ship for Doug Jones. So please get involved with his campaign. I'll be jumping on board his campaign, donating and emailing and all kinds of things for Doug Jones down in Alabama. And you should too. And also, black voters overall have been instrumental in getting him in to the Senate. We need to keep him there. He has the experience. He has a great track record. And he's running against somebody who has no experience at all. And quite frankly, as a former football coach, is really his only credential. And that does not help you when you're running a big state like Alabama and representing them in Washington, D.C., and Doug Jones has done that ably. So let's get out there and support Doug Jones and all the other Democrats running for Senate or running to hold on to their Senate seats. This is a huge election, and it's not just the White House that we need as Democrats, but we need the Senate to flip to blue. It's got to be blue. We need a net gain of 4 Democratic seats, and if we do that, we will have a democratically controlled U.S. Senate. And we can translate that to victories in state houses all over this country. So we have 17 more days left. Let's continue the hard work. Make sure you vote early. Make sure you tell all your friends. And make sure you get involved with a campaign and work hard. Just an hour of your time in your busy lives, just 1 hour, can make a huge difference with phone calling and texting. It's a huge difference. I'm telling you, 1 hour makes it happen. Get on board now. So it's really important to get involved in these campaigns. Now is the time. This is the time of persuasion. This is the time to focus. This is the time not to be distracted. And yes, speaking of distractions, Ice Cube has become a major one now. It's an annoying distraction to the point in which you do have to address it, but not be on to it too long. Although I do plan to say one more thing or two in the next few days about Ice Cube. And the key thing here for me is this, is that we have people out there, Malcolm X talked about this many a moon ago, who are entertainers, who may not be the best informed, may not be the most articulate, may not be the most sincere, although there are certainly some things I think about Ice Cube in terms of him wanting to see black empowerment. That is sincere. I do not think that Ice Cube is being insincere there. Where I have an issue with Ice Cube is the other stuff underneath all of that. The surface sincerity may be very genuine, but it's the show your work portion of this that I am greatly skeptical of. And what I think Ice Cube is doing is not very helpful. I do not think that he is coordinating with the groups who have done the work over the years, like Black Lives Matter. And I'm talking about as it was headed by Alicia Garza and company. Patrice Cullors is another person who founded Black Lives Matter along with Alicia Garza. And I forget the name of the third black woman who also did that. So those are the kinds of individuals I think Ice Cube needs to hook up with in terms of getting involved in a coalition effort. This cannot be, and Alicia Garza said this to Ice Cube with Roland Martin yesterday. This cannot be this cannot be some transactional thing. This is about a movement, and you need a movement to bring forth results, and movements are also effectuated by coalitions. It can't be one disparate person over here and a disparate person in that corner and one over the other way, and they all got their plans and they're waving them, but everyone's talking, but nobody's talking together in the same room. That cannot be happening. And Alicia Garza made that point to Ice Cube, and he said that he'd work with anybody. And she said repeatedly, look, I'll work with you. I look forward to working with you. And I didn't hear him say the same thing back to her. You know, that does count for something. When someone's telling you they look forward to working with you, and the person that they're saying that to does not say the same kind of thing back, I tend to get suspicious. Sorry. I mean, that's a basic common courtesy. When someone is telling you they look forward to working with you, I mean, intrinsically, shouldn't you be saying the same thing back to them? Unless, of course, you don't intend to work with them or you don't look forward to it. I mean, if someone says to you, nice to see you, I mean, 9 times out of 10, you mean to respond the same way, don't you? I mean, you're not going to say it's not nice to see them, right? I mean, it's just basic human courtesy and decency. And it is sincere, and it should be. That's a natural thing. But somehow in that Roland Martin interview that I urge you to watch, Roland S. Martin, I've talked about Roland Martin a lot. I've talked about Joe Madison. I've talked about other people that you should be supporting and listening to. Roland Martin is definitely one of them. You can go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. He's on YouTube. He's got his digital show Monday through Friday. He's on Twitter at Roland S. Martin. He is a really good resource and a great communicator and a great broadcaster and also a great technician, and is someone who is very much on the technological scene as well. He is a very good adept user of social media, and he's a man with a message, but not only that, a message of empowerment and inclusion of black people. He believes in bringing black people to the table. He does it every day on his show, Roland Martin Unfiltered. Please check that show out. He interviewed Ice Cube yesterday, and Alicia Garza, who is one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter, was part of the conversation. And it was a very, very good one. Great interview by Roland. But it highlighted, in my view, Ice Cube not having a real bloomin' clue about what he was talking about. There are plans that Joe Biden has put out here for black people, for black America. He had it out for 6 months, at least 6. Maybe it was March or April was the language 6 months ago. I did a podcast and I read parts of that agenda out that Joe Biden had. It's the same one. May have added a few things after George Floyd, but even around that time. So I don't know where Ice Cube's been. Where was he on all of this last year? Oh, and he was asked that. Where were you? I think Alicia Garza asked him on the interview that Roland Martin did. Where have you been? She didn't say it like that, but I'm saying it. But the phraseology was, these issues have existed for years, and my organization, Black Lives Matter, has been working at this. I've been working at this. This is Alicia Garza now for 20 years at least. And where have you, what work, she didn't say this, but what are you doing? How come it's only been the last few months? And literally, July is the first time you started to hear from Ice Cube. July of this year, not last, this year. So my whole point is I am just very skeptical of Ice Cube. I'm not happy with him because, quite frankly, he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. Watch that interview by Roland Martin, the one that Roland Martin did yesterday on his show, Roland Martin Unfiltered. You can go to his Twitter page at Roland S. Martin and watch the interview. You'll look through his Twitter timeline. You'll see his interview. Watch it. And you judge for yourself whether Ice Cube has a clear plan about what he's doing, what he's talking about. He just doesn't have a clue. And as Alicia Garza said, this is not some transactional thing. This is a movement of people. This ain't some backroom deal. You just walk on in there with your millionaire. These are my words now. With your millionaire self, and you just try to pull a transaction on behalf of Black America without inviting the Black organizations of America that are doing the darn work and have been doing the damn legwork for years, for decades even. Where, you've got to interface with them. You're not just going to do this side deal with somebody in Washington, Donald Trump. Well, I hope that he won't be in Washington too much longer in that White House. The way the voting is going now, Anyway, look, we still got so much work to do. I don't even want to go there yet. But look, Ice Cube cannot be in a side deal on his own. You've got other organizations out here, black organizations. Interface with them, work with them, speak to them.
Hopefully, this portion of your destiny.
Yeah, hopefully this portion of your destiny, Ice Cube, is to meet with black organizations, not just the one that you quote. ADOS, and there have been lots of people who've had a lot to say about ADOS, but, get everybody involved together so we can all sit down at the table, have a unified plan, hash that out, have a conversation, and then present a united front so that we're not all at 6s and 17s and 7s presenting different fractured plans that may not be the same. Obviously, they're different, since I just said that word, and result in confusion and miscommunication and people on different pages. Ice Cube just came to this dance in July. That's what he said. He said that July I put my plan together. And then you look at this platinum plan and you find this so-called platinum plan by Trump, and you find out that Kanye West wrote the bloomin' thing. We've got to be smarter. Kanye West is a shill for Donald Trump. And not only that, Kanye West is not a friend to the black community at large. He is not. I'm sorry. Yeah. You may have participated, or your wife may have participated in some reforms for some black folk. But come on, I'm talking about the rest of the black community. Kanye West, I'm sorry. This guy is doing some really unholy things, like being a member of the American Independent Party. That's the ticket he's running on in some of these states. As a member of the American Independent Party, do you know who the American Independent Party are? Do you have any idea who they are? Yeah, they are bad news. They are a far-right, racist-ass political party that George Wallace was once a member of. It's the same darn party. And you have to ask yourself, why on earth would... Well, I think I know why. Kanye West has lots of issues, and he also has an issue against the black community, because if he cared about the black community, he would not be doing this. And doing it at the behest of Donald Trump. So, listen, ignore people who do not have your best interests at heart. Ignore people who are ignorant and misguided. People who do not have the information. Because while Ice Cube may have a good faith sense of, yeah, we need empowerment in the black community. We need that. And that's a real concern. I've talked about it. I've talked about how Democrats, I said it just yesterday, Democrats need to reach out a whole lot more to black voters, especially to black male voters. And I think Joe Biden understands that, which is why he's put out a plan to empower black men. He and Kamala Harris, they put this out. I mean, it's been out there. I don't know how long, maybe just today or maybe a few weeks back. A specific plan to empower black men. It's 20 or 22 pages long. I'm going to put a link to that in the liner notes of this episode. You have to read that. And I CC'd Ice Cube on it on Twitter. On my Twitter handle, @thepopcorn, REEL. And I CC'd Ice Cube. I hope Ice Cube will read it. Donald Trump's plan for black America is one bloomin' page. True story. 1 page. Joe Biden's 22 detailed pages. I will link again to the plan for black America as well. Very detailed. And Kanye West wrote this platinum plan that Trump is on about? Come on, folks. You may be able to reach some entertainers, some black entertainers, who half of whom don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's all about money and self-interest for them, as they're millionaires. But there's a whole rest of us out here, black folk, who want something more and who are demanding more. and not only demanding more, but have organizations from which they do that. So to all these celebrities, the 3 or 4 of them who are acting like renegade thugs right now, you need to get in touch with these black organizations like Color of Change, like Black Lives Matter, like a whole heck of a lot of other black organizations where you can find them. They're all over Twitter, and you can Google them, who do the work and have been doing it beyond just this past July. They've been doing it way before July 2020 ever came along. Oh, but I'm busy with my acting and my music, so that's my excuse. Well, wait a minute. John Legend is busy with his acting and his music. That didn't stop him from doing the work he's been doing this year with different political organizations and what he's been doing with candidates on the campaign. Hey, before we even got to Biden being the nominee, he was supporting Elizabeth Warren. He was out there doing work for her, outreach for her. He's been doing this for years. He's a guy that does political activism. What about people like Kerry Washington? Kerry Washington's an actor. She's got plays and movies she does and events that she's busy doing, but that didn't stop her from getting involved for months and years. She's been an activist. I interviewed her back in the early 2000s, like 2008 or 9 or 10, whenever it was. Could have been 2011, but she's been an activist for years. Being all kind of, she does acting, didn't stop her from being a political activist. I mean, I doubt the sincerity. Look, I doubt the commitment in terms of, look, I'm not so sure he wants to work with black organizations. If he's quoting just one, ADOS, I mean, come on. I think ADOS is a good organization, but you need to be working with black organizations who are doing real substantive work around all of these issues and are interfacing with these campaigns and demanding things from them and have their ear. I'm sorry, ADOS, I'm sorry, that's not going to be enough. You need to start daisy chaining with all these other organizations. And if you want to bring ADOS in, bring ADOS in. But you and ADOS can't just be talking to each other, and you've got a billion other black organizations out here, and you can't get involved with them and interface with them. Have conversations with Rashard Robinson. Have conversations with Alicia, and you seem like you're going to talk with Miss Garza. Have a conversation with her and all these other groups out here, black women's groups. Have some, they're out here, Latasha Brown, and I can go down a whole list of people. Have conversations, and let's get together as black people, for goodness sake. And let's stop this tomfoolery. Let's stop the foolishness. And let's unify. Come on now. This Ice Cube stuff and Kanye West and Diddy's doing his thing over there, and we need to, but where's your organization, brother? Why aren't you, if you don't have any big organization or some organization that backs you up, then you're just one person talking into the wind, no matter how many millions of people in your platform you have. And Ice Cube, and Alicia I don't want to spoil the interview. You've got to watch that interview Roland Martin does with Ice Cube. But look, the platform that Ice Cube has, as she points out, you could have got something done by now, mate. And if Alicia Garza, as she pointed out, had that kind of platform, she would have been a lot further along. And I agree. And it's kind of I'm not ascribing this to her, but I think that's a subtle way of saying, what are you doing with your platform, brother? Apart from making some noise, but really not getting anything done and not talking to the people who are in a position to get something done, who've been doing the work for decades. Look at the organization I forget her name escapes me right now, but I've got it on the tip of my tongue. The woman who started the Me Too movement. You know who I'm talking about. Her name begins with a T. It just drives me nuts that my memory in my old age, I can't remember her name. I believe it begins with a T, but you know the sister I'm talking about. She has been doing work in the black community for decades. around Me Too and empowerment of people in the black community and the black trans community. If we are really serious, we need to bring everybody in. And we have to be intersectional about this. We do. You can't be in your own little corner over there, Ice, melting away, while this guy in the White House is stomping all over black people. And then when you are presented with a better plan that has detail in it, Joe Biden's plan for black America, Joe Biden's plan to empower black men, you turn around and go, well, what's Biden's plan about? What is he doing? Educate yourself, brother. Stop asking the question and stop being so ignorant. And stop doing this both sidesism, this poison of both sides. This kind of rhetoric does not get any of us anywhere, or the whataboutism that absolutely paralyzes us. We must stop that tomfoolery. We must stop that madness. Let's stop making excuses not to do things together, and let's start working together. Let's claim victory together, not in some back room with some corporate agenda. We need an agenda for the masses. And that is all I'm going to say, at least for now, when it comes to Ice Cube and anyone else who is Johnny-come-lately to something that's been going on here for 400 years. Yeah, you're a rapper. Yeah, but that doesn't give you credibility because you've been talking. What have you been doing? What organizations have you really been talking to? Let's get real.
Hopefully, this portion of your destiny will lead to a better Michael Cohen, a better Donald Trump, a better United States of America, and a better world. And I'm hoping that all of us can get back to this democracy that we want and that we should be passing on to our children so that they can do better than what we did. And we have got to get back to normal. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
That was Representative Elijah Cummings. He, the congressman of his district in Maryland and Baltimore last year in February 2019, speaking to Michael Cohen during a hearing. It was exactly 1 year ago today that Representative Elijah Cummings, chairman of the Oversight Committee, passed away. He was only, I believe, in his 60s. And so it's been exactly 1 year. A year ago today. May we remember the example of Congressman Cummings, and may we remember him for his great work and his leadership in the House of Representatives for the Democrats. He was one of the most well-respected people in the House of Representatives, a leader, a true leader, who really did care about the people he represented and about the people at large, about humanity. That clip I played you exemplifies it. Whenever you are someone saying, may Donald Trump be a better person, I guess you really do have some kind of hope in humanity. And it really shows that you really do care about everybody. Representative Cummings was a beacon of light and leadership and inspiration for many millions of people. And it is really stunning that he is not here, even though he did have a long bout with illness. But let his example inspire us all to lead, to organize, to be active, and to vote early. May Representative Elijah Cummings continue to rest in power. He certainly would have wanted us to vote. So let's get to it and make him proud, along with so many others, including John Lewis and the late Supreme Court Justice as well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Vote. Our lives really do depend on it. I'm going to play this, and I was supposed to do this in yesterday's episode, but I want to make sure I get to it now, today, because I didn't do it yesterday. This, Ben Sasse is just, well, listen to these clips from Ben Sasse, and then I'm going to just listen to this from Ben Sasse.
The way he kisses dictators' butts. I mean, the way he ignores that the Uyghurs are in literal concentration camps in Xinjiang right now. He hasn't lifted a finger on behalf of the Hong Kongers. I mean, he and I have a very different foreign policy. It isn't just that he fails to lead our allies, it's that the United States now regularly sells out our allies under his leadership. The way he treats women and spends like a drunken sailor, the ways I criticize President Obama for that kind of spending, I criticize President Trump for as well. He mocks evangelicals behind closed doors. His family has treated the presidency like a business opportunity. He's flirted with white supremacists. First, he ignored COVID, and then he went into full economic shutdown mode. He was the one who said 10 to 14 days of shutdown would fix this, and that was always wrong. I mean, and so I don't think the way he's led through COVID has been reasonable or responsible or right.
Politicians do this. Politicians, this is what infuriates a lot of people about politicians. This is what they do. They don't, by and large, take the principled stands when they should. They wait until everything is safe, especially Republican politicians. They wait until everything is safe, then to come out and say something. It's way too late now, Ben Sasse. If you had voted to convict Donald Trump in February of this year, then I might be able to say something that, good job and good on you. But this is just ridiculous. And look, you got to vote these Republicans out.
This year's election is going to be a little different.
Instead of one election day, we now have a voting season.
That special time of year when polls can open weeks before Election Day.
When your mailbox can become a voting booth.
When how you vote is just as important as who you vote for.
How, when, and where to cast your ballot depends on your state.
'Tis the season to be prepared.
This year, plan your vote.
Welcome back. So Joe Biden had the town hall on Thursday, and I alluded to it yesterday with, I think, a really great exchange between Cedric Humphreys, as you know now, who is voting for Biden. But at the time of this town hall, his question was much more along the line of, what do you really have to offer black people and young black voters? And I think it's a good question, even though I had some criticism about how he raised it. I thought that he was, a tad disrespectful to the vice president. But look, he's obviously frustrated. I can pass there with that. He's being honest. He's being he's real about it. He's honest. But obviously I think he's thought about this as I've said, in the interview he did with Don Lemon on Friday. And he is now voting for Joe Biden, which I think is good. I hope he tells everybody he knows who is a young person, as is he, to do the same thing, vote for Joe Biden, and keep pushing. As he has pointed out, it does not, and I've pointed this out too, it does not stop on November 3rd or 4th or 5th. The work continues, and it doesn't stop on January 20th, 2021 either. The work continues on. If Joe Biden gets in, the work continues in his administration, and you've got to push him. You can't just expect him to just turn around and do everything you want. You've got to make him do it. Just like FDR has said, just like other presidents have said, LBJ will make me do it. And you've got to make him do it. You've got to push these folks. Joe Biden is able to be pushed. He's willing to listen, but you've got to do that. You have capital, and if he gets in, you have cachet. If you voted for him or whatever, even if you didn't, he said he'd fight for people who vote for him, and he'd fight for people just as hard who didn't. So you know what? If you didn't vote for him, then you fight and push him. If you did vote for him, even more importantly, then you fight for him, but you push him. You fight for your agenda at the table. You don't go home. Too many of us did that with Obama. We turned around and went home. Oh, he's got it. And he said, well, I'll take it from here, Metaphorically, I'll take it from here. And he did what he had to do, and he was blocked by Mitch McConnell for the 8 years, and the GOP blocked him. He got Obamacare passed, but basically, the GOP blocked him for 8 years, especially the last 2 of those years, but 8 years overall. So look, we've got to keep fighting for our agenda and supporting Joe Biden, but we've got to send an unmistakable message to Joe Biden. If he gets in, we have to still keep pushing the agenda. He's got to be able to listen to that. If Donald Trump is there for the next 4 years, we'll still keep fighting, but Donald Trump isn't going to listen to us. He'll listen to a couple of rich rappers. That's who he'll listen to. But he ain't going to listen to black folk at large. Here are some really good clips. I'm going to play them back to back to back. Some may have some speakers asking the questions. Some may not. But it's going to be a few minutes of clips, maybe up to about 6 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. But in any event, I'll play these clips. You've got to listen to these clips. These clips were not getting played in the corporate news media.
Ourselves in a position where we're more isolated in the world than we've ever been. Our allies are our goat alone. America first has made America alone. You have Iran closer to having enough nuclear material to build a bomb. North Korea has more bombs and missiles available to it. We find ourselves where our NATO allies are publicly saying they can't count on us. We're in a situation as well where in the Far East we find ourselves in the Western Pacific, where we're isolated as well. You have Japan and South Korea at odds with one another. China is making moves. So I would say we find ourselves less secure than we've been. I do compliment the president on the deal with Israel recently, but if you take a look, we're not very well trusted around the world. When 17 major nations in the world were asked who they trust more, who's the better leader, and the president came in behind both the international survey, both behind Putin as well as Xi. And look what Putin's doing. You have Americans, bounties on American military's heads in Afghanistan. There are more people there now, by the way, than when we left in Afghanistan. And we find ourselves in a situation where he's talked to Putin 6 times, hadn't said a word to him. And NATO is on the risk of beginning to crack because they doubt our concern, whether we're there. You see what's happening, everything from Belarus to Poland to Hungary, and the rise of totalitarian regimes in the world, and as well as this president embraces all the thugs in the world. I mean, he's best friends with the leader of North Korea, sending love letters. He doesn't take on Putin in any way, and he is just he's learned the art of the steal from the art of the deal by Xi in China. So I would respectfully suggest, no, there is no plan, no coherent plan for foreign policy. We've always ruled. We've been most effective as a world leader, in my humble opinion, not just by the exercise of our power, the most powerful nation in the world, but the power of our example. That's what's led the rest of the world to follow us on almost everything. He's pulled out of almost every international organization. He gets laughed at when he goes to literally, not figuratively, when he goes to the United Nations. I mean, it's not about the president per se. It's about the nation and the lack of respect that's shown to us. What happened violent crime actually went down precipitously. Remember the significant rise in violent crime that was occurring in the late 80s into the 90s. It went down, and fewer African Americans were arrested because you had the requirement. The cops didn't like it. They didn't like the community policing because you had to have two people in a vehicle. They had to get out of their cars. They had to introduce themselves to who owned the local liquor store, who owned the local grocery store, who was the woman on the corner. And what they would do, George, they'd actually go and give people their phone numbers. A cop would give the phone number. So if Nellie Smith was on the second floor where drug deals took place and things happened below her, her apartment, she could call and say, it's Millie, and there's something going on here. And they'd never reveal it was her because they know if she knew that, in fact, they'd never report the crime. She'd never report. So it actually started to come down. What happened? They eliminated the funding for community policing. Community policing doesn't mean more people coming in up-armored Humvees and swarming like that. When they did, it turned out that by the time we got to the late 90s, the crime had come down so much, and the mayors and everybody asked the question, where do you want me to spend the money? They say, well, only 1% thought violent crime was a problem. It was as high as 22%.
Right now we have a systemic problem. How do you get the kind of policing, prevent the kind of policing?
You have to change the way in which they police. One of the things I'm going to do, George, is set up a national study group made up of cops, social workers, as well as made up of the black community and the brown community to sit down in the White House and over the next year come up with significant reforms that need to take place within communities. You have to bring them together. One of the things I've observed is, the neighborhood I grew up in Claremont, you either became a cop, a firefighter, or a priest. I wasn't qualified much to do any one of them. But here's the deal, all kidding aside. Most cops don't like bad cops.
Correct.
They don't like it.
Correct.
And so what happens is they get intimidated into not reporting. So one of the things we do is there has to be transparency available. We have to be able to go in at the federal level, be able to go in and check out whether or not there's systematic problems within police departments. If, in fact, a cop needs to be tried, it's not the prosecutor in the community, in the district we're there. You got to go outside the community to get another prosecutor to come in and handle the crime. There's a lot of things we've learned. And it takes time, but we can do this. You can ban chokeholds, but beyond that, you have to teach people how to de-escalate circumstances. De-escalate. So instead of anybody coming at you, and the first thing you do is shoot to kill, you shoot them in the leg. There's ways you have to do more background checks in terms of whether or not the person coming in passes certain psychological tests. And the last thing I'll say, and I'm sorry because it's really, I think, really, really important, is you have to be in a position where you are able to identify the things that have to change. And one of the things that has to change is so many cops get called into circumstances where somebody is mentally off, like what happened not long ago with that guy with the knife. That's why we have to provide within police departments psychologists and social workers to go out with the cops on those calls, some of those 911 calls, to de-escalate the circumstance, to deal with talking them down. But we can't. Cops are kind of like school teachers now. A school teacher has to know everything from how to handle hunger in a household as well as how to teach you how to read. Well, cops don't have that breadth, and there's a lot of things we can do. We shouldn't be defunding cops. We should be mandating the things that we should be doing within police departments and make sure there's total transparency.
I'm the proud mom of 2 girls, 8 and 10. My youngest daughter is transgender. The Trump administration has attacked the rights of transgender people, banning them from military service, weakening non-discrimination protections, and even removing the word transgender from some government websites. How will you, as president, reverse this dangerous and discriminatory agenda and ensure that the lives and rights of LGBTQ people are protected under U.S. law?
I will flat out just change the law. Eliminate those executive orders, number one. You may recall, I'm the guy who said, I was raised by a man who I remember I was being dropped off. My dad was a high school educated, well-read man who was a really decent guy, and I was being dropped off to get an application in the center of our city, Wilmington, Delaware, the corporate capital of the world at the time. And these two men, I'm getting out to get an application to be a lifeguard in the African-American community because there was a big swimming pool complex. And these two men, well-dressed, leaned up and hugged one another and kissed one another. I'm getting out of the car at the light, and I turned to my dad. My dad looked at me and said, "Joey, it's simple. They love each other." The idea that an 8-year-old child or a 10-year-old child decides, I decided I want to be transgender. That's what I think I'd like to be. It'll make my life a lot easier. There should be zero discrimination. And what's happening is too many transgender women of color are being murdered. They're being murdered. I mean, I think it's up to now 17. Don't hold me to that number, but it's higher now. Yeah. And that's just this year. And so I promise you, there is no reason to suggest that there should be any right denied your daughter or daughters, whichever, if one or two, one, your daughter, that your other daughter has a right to be and do. None, zero. And by the way, my son Bo passed away, was the Attorney General of the state of Delaware. He was the guy who got the first transgender law passed in the state of Delaware, and because of a young man who became a woman who worked for him in the Attorney General's office.
We've got one more segment coming up. Thank you.
I'm proud of that.
So those are the clips, and look, Joe Biden, I think, did a very good job over on Thursday. I really think he articulated the issues well. I think everything points to how comfortable he is with the audience. He spoke for another 35 minutes after the actual live broadcast had ended. I mean, you don't get that very often. And when ABC was doing its post show, I may have mentioned this yesterday, but if I didn't, I'll say it now, and I apologize if I may have, if I'm repeating myself. But while ABC was doing its post town hall analysis, there was a camera still in the studio where the town hall was being held, the physically distanced town hall, and Joe Biden, there he is standing there, still talking to all these voters. Still listening, still talking, for half hour. I mean, listen, this is someone who loves the town hall setting. He loves to interact with voters. And the reason I think Donald Trump did back out of that debate that was virtual is not because it was virtual. It was because he did not want to be providing any kind of contrast in front of voters on the same stage with Joe Biden, because being on that same stage with Joe Biden with a live studio audience, physically distanced studio audience, would have presented the very stark contrast right before those voters' eyes. And those undecided voters, the few that are left, the very few, I think it's about 5 or 6% now. I mean, this is not an election like last time, 4 years ago, where you had much more, you had about 17 to 24 or 15 to 20% undecided. This is a 5% now, 5 or 6% undecideds. So look, I think Donald Trump chickened out of that second debate, not because the debate folks said it's going to be virtual, but because I think he just did not want a contrast in front of a studio audience. He just did not want to share that stage, virtual or in person, quite frankly, in that same spot with a live studio audience watching, whether that be a virtual studio audience or whatever. I mean, he just didn't want that because the contrast would be too stark and too great. And you could still see that anyway, despite him being on air the same time that Biden was. Biden just did a very good job. I'm not even over talking this. He looked better in that town hall than he has in a lot of other things, I can tell you. But this campaign now and this voting season lasts for 17 more days. And I urge you, if you have not yet voted, get out there and vote, please. Get out there and Phonebank. This is the home stretch now. of this election season. If you are fed up, if you're tired of everything, activate yourself. Believe me, it makes a difference. If you're not feeling up to par or whatever's going on, you will get a burst of energy talking to callers or texting or writing about what's going on, informing people. Text your neighbors, your friends, your family. Go out there. Please get online, get on Zoom, have a Zoom meeting, get on YouTube, get on Facebook. Energize people. This is the time now. This is the critical home stretch now. 2.5 weeks. It's going to be around the corner, just 17 days away from the end of the election season. 17 more voting days. Come on, people. We can do this. Operation Landslide continues. 17 more days, folks. Get out there and vote. Vote early and make sure you tell everyone to do the same. Thank you very much for listening to this edition of The Politicrat. I'm Omar Moore.